Oops. Six, 3, 2, 4, 5, 5. Hey, there you are.
Oh, there we go. What's happening, buddy?
Cool. Cool. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
Good. Nice to connect with you.
Yeah. How long is it gonna? How long do we have? Just so I know. How long? 30,
40 minutes or so,
Perfect.
whatever we really need.
Yeah, I have a hard stop in 45 at 4:45, but that's it.
Awesome.
Other
That's
than that,
cool.
we're good.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds good.
At the end, if you could just say, so, I mean, it may lead into it naturally, but just ask what I'm up to these days, right? So what am I working on these days? So I can kind of
definitely.
Give you an update.
Yeah, like we can put your links in the comments chat, like what I said, for LinkedIn and so forth.
Okay.
So people can know what to do there. Is this a common talk you give?
I mean, definitely I've talked about my book. Like people ask about my book and kind of talk about it, but we tangent on spirituality and all kinds of stuff. So,
awesome.
It's just whatever you want to chat about. And
cool.
Your audience is 50-50, right? Practitioners and people that want
help. Around 50-50 or so.
Right. That's challenging in a sense of like, how do you communicate them? But it is what it is, right?
Yeah. And like I said, I think I mentioned to you too, I did put an email out, and I'm also going to send a replay link as well to anyone that's interested.
Awesome.
And then we're also going to put it on our YouTube channel.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm just going to click go live, and if you can let me know.
And then my website is aliveconsulting.net, just so you have it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. It looks like we're live.
All right.
Hello, everyone. This is Chris Porton here, one of the admins of this amazing group. And I've got a very special guest here. I've known Sergio for 4 or 5 years or so. Sergio has extensive experience working with professional athletes. You've done a lot of really cool work with truck drivers and so forth as well. So could you share a little bit about yourself here?
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. I think we've known each other more than 5 years. I think it's probably about 7, 8, 9 years, but
yeah, something like
time
that.
flies, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, I mean, I've been in the health space for, 26 years. I got into it kind of by accident in a sense. I was kind of out of shape and partying a little too hard, wasn't going anywhere in my early 20s. And I wanted to buy a motorcycle because I just thought that would help me with my anger and depression issues. I was just kind of feeling lost in life. And I started saving up for a motorcycle by stop partying, right? And I joined a fitness challenge at good old Bally's Health Club in Chicago, in downtown. And I did this 4-week fitness challenge. And at the end of it, I didn't win the $1,000 because I was really hoping for it. But after about 2 or 3 months of following along with that lifestyle, I saved enough money to buy a motorcycle. And I remember the first night I got it, I went riding at 2 o'clock in the morning on Lakeshore Drive because I knew there'd be no traffic, and just to cruise and clear my mind. And I'm like, this is what I needed to kind of get rid of my anger and depression and feel better. And as soon as I had that thought, that wisdom voice comes right after and says, no, it's not the motorcycle. It's your life. It's the lifestyle you've been living. And I'm like, all right. So I kind of paid attention to that. And over the next couple of years, I just noticed how many people were so not only unhealthy physically, but emotionally as well, that people weren't healthy or happy. And I'm like, you know what, this has made me feel like a lot more positive and happy. Aside from the energy and getting rid of the anger and depression, I'm like, let me do this for a living while I pay for my degree. I didn't come from any money, so I had to really pay for my way through college and go to school part-time and work 1 or 2 full-time jobs to finally graduated at 31. But I did become a personal trainer, nutritionist to help me get through this journey. And when I finally graduated at 31, I'd been doing it for 5 or 6 years. And a client of mine who was also a professor of psychology wanted to go get my graduate degree, said, Sergio, before you jump into graduate school, he's like, look what you've done in your career already. I was the head trainer of a very high-end health club chain in Chicago. Back in the day, Lakeshore Athletic Clubs. I was running their clubs for them, the personal training, fitness, nutrition side. I was on NBC doing weekly segments on the news. I was training a couple of pro athletes. And so things were going really, really well. And he's like, why don't you put both feet in this field for a little while versus just 1 foot here and 1 foot in school and see what happens. And I did. And it kind of changed my life and my trajectory of my career, where I started to get more pro athletes, get more exposure, got national recognition, went into the Today Show. I eventually ended up opening my own gyms, and I had a couple of corporate gyms, and then I had my own standalone gym, and got appointed by the White House to work in DC as an executive director of the President's Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition. So a lot of great things were happening. I started getting into the corporate wellness space because a lot of my clients were asking me to bring what I was doing for them to their employees. And that started to grow, and ended up working for a trucking company, as you mentioned, helping 700 truck drivers improve their health, which was pretty awesome because we really worked in depth with them over 4.5 years. And I would coach the drivers for about a year. But we had 700 drivers go through our program, and we had such huge impact on their health, physically and emotionally, but also their driving record, their retention in the trucking company. So we got national recognition, spoke at the National Highway Traffic Association's, what do they call it thing? It's called NETS, Network for Employers for Traffic Safety. It's their nonprofit arm. So I was a keynote speaker there for 2 years in their conferences, and went on the Dr. Oz show. Just a lot of great stuff, man. I hate talking about myself, but when I'm asked to tell about what I've done, I feel grateful that I get to share this stuff, because I think it's so important, which I give you so much kudos for, building this great group of people that are really passionate about learning and teaching and sharing health. Because I think, we see the numbers and the stats and the data. It's a hot mess out there, isn't it? So I feel humbled and blessed to just anything I've ever gotten to do that I get to do this for a living. My kids sometimes ask me, like, Poppy, you work so late, I go, I don't work at all. I feel like I just get to really find ways to help people find a little bit more joy, health, and happiness in their life, and fulfillment.
That's amazing. And it's the first time I saw you speak, I don't know, years ago or so, like you said, and you mentioned love yourself enough to live a healthy lifestyle. And again, this talk is about sugar and insulin and so forth, but it all plays together. From my perspective, and I'm sure your perspective too, your home, if someone's home and they're bored, the chips, the candy are really easy. Is that loving yourself enough? You got to find we all have to find a balance of, is this mouth pleasure going to serve me now, or is it going to serve me later, or kind of in between in a sense? So I really appreciate that's one statement that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, like it's just this dopamine rush that lasts
Right.
20 seconds to 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden you got to get another one. So that's why you can't stop eating the chips or the sugar or
Right.
the candy. And
The Pringles.
And then when you're done, you have a couple hours of feeling bloated, lethargic, and a little bit depressed, because of the crash of the dopamine as well.
I remember as a kid, Pringles, once you pop, you can't stop. You're gonna have the whole can in a set and stuff. So you remember that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So when you work with clients, we're gonna get into the insulin and how that works together too. When your clients, is it 60-40 mental, knowing what to do, 70-30 as far as helping them to stay on track and making changes and so forth?
I almost don't separate it because the mind and
Okay.
the body are so interconnected. It's a
Okay.
holistic approach, right? Sometimes for most people, if you can get the body to move, the mind will follow.
Right.
But if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to, oops. If you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to get the body to move.
Exactly. Correct.
So I do initiate it with mindset.
Okay.
And I think you just mentioned it, self-love, right? So what I really tell people to do is there's two things you got to start with. One is self-love. And we all judge ourselves. We all are ourselves' biggest critic. That my faith teaches me that we're not created to judge ourselves, and we're created out of pure light and love. I was blessed to be in India a couple of times to meet the Dalai Lama at his home. And I remember the one key thing that sticks out to me so much that he had said, he goes, Sergio, whether you're Christian, Buddhist, Islamic, Hindu, have no religion, what we believe is that we're all created out of pure light and love. And that is our deepest true nature. Because when you're honest and you're selfless, you serve and you help people, there's a joy inside of you no one can take away. When you lie, steal, cheat, deceive, you hurt yourself or you hurt others, you judge yourself or you judge others, there's an unhappiness, an unnatural flow and energy inside of you that you can't deny. So we are all pure light and love. We got to learn to forgive ourselves and move on, and we're going to continue to make mistakes. So I try to really teach people. I remember telling this to truck driver, and they're looking at me like, what's this guy talking? But I was afraid to have that conversation with them. But that's my most receptive audience I've ever had in my life. They came up to me and said, man, you really hit me in the heart, and told, because they judge themselves so much. And one of the things I really learned, interestingly enough, in the first week I was there, the CEO of the company had said, Sergio, what you have to understand is 99% of the truck drivers don't grow up dreaming to be a truck driver. It's by default, right? Some of them do. Some of them grew up in families
Right.
up, they want to do it. But most of them they just can't get along with people in factories or other types of jobs, or whether it's white collar, blue collar, they just have a hard time. And they got to escape the world and just kind of live on the road. So some of them just been out of jail, so they can't find jobs anywhere else. It's a really challenging life. So when I said this to them, they really actually took it to heart and started to let go and stop judging themselves. And I think that's the first thing I really try to teach people is you got to learn to let go and stop judging yourself. And then you also have to have the belief. And no matter how many times you failed, I give them the logic of why most people fail, right? I mean, look at the diet industry. It's a $600 billion industry for a reason, because they do repeat customers. Same thing as the auto industry. They make their money off the shop, right? They don't make the money selling the cars that much. It's like, we could fly things to the moon. We can fly things to Mars and take pictures, but we can't build a car to last 3 or 4 years without breaking down. Come on. But that's where the money's at. So same thing with the diet industry. We give programs to help people lose weight. And part of it's the society's fault that we're such an impatient society that we're going to give you something to give you really fast results, but short term, right? Over the long haul, it destroys your metabolism, your hormones, your gut microbiome, your mental clarity, your mental everything. So you binge at some point and you fail, and you blame yourself, not the diet, because you lost 15 pounds those first 3 weeks, right? So when you can kind of share that with people, like, look, whatever you've done in the past, it's not your fault. I'm going to teach you something new. And I want to be honest with you 100%. I was a trainer for just almost 10 years at the point where I had gained and lost weight probably 5 or 6 times, and I couldn't keep it off. I was following the Body for Life stuff. I was following the Atkins. I did it all. I did South Beach. I did them all. But every one of them left me at some point craving, like, pets and kids would look like meat or animal. I'm like, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten enough carbs. I haven't had enough fat, or whatever the kind of diet I followed, that I failed. And it was a friend of mine who she introduced me to these doctors in Canada that really taught me in depth about insulin. And when I really understood insulin's mechanism and how it's connected to everything in the body, and when you can master insulin, it changes everything. And I remember I lost, I think, almost 23, 24 pounds at that point. And I've never, fluctuated more than 30, 33 pounds, I think was the most I gained and lost, right? So I've never been 50, 100 pounds, but I mean, 33 pounds is a lot, but at that point, I only need to lose like 22, 23 pounds, and I've never gained it back in the last 14 years.
Right.
I stay within 2 to 4 pounds, and that's pretty normal. But it was when I learned that I really started teaching people, like, whatever you've learned in the past, let's let it go. If there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have been able to lose weight and keep it off, and nowadays I get to use the truck drivers, because I have a truck driver that I started coaching actually before I even worked with this company about 13 years ago, and he's kept 140 pounds off for 13, 14 years.
It's amazing.
I mean, I think he lost 146, 147 when we kind of looked at it, and he maybe gained 12 to 15 pounds back, and that's been his happy norm forever. Now he's doing, it's an amazing story. But I have dozens of drivers that I stay in touch with that have lost. I had one guy that's lost 190 pounds, and he's gained maybe 15 of them back, 20 of them back, and he's never gone past that. He's found his happiness. And if they can do it, you can do it. So now if I got you
Absolutely
to understand self-love and forgiveness, and I get you to understand your belief, because now it's not you, it's the flawed systems, and knowing if they can do it, you can do it. And every truck driver in the world will tell you, I drive on the road 14 hours a day. I don't get to sleep regular. I'm in front of fast food restaurants. That's half times my only option. And I've been able to do it. And if they can do it, you can do it. So that's how I start, And then
I was just thinking, like, they're sitting on their butt, essentially, excuse the term, but they're sitting on their butt for, like you said, 12 to 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
And like you said, if they can do it, then so can you and I and everyone else that has a need, goal, and a desire and so forth. It's really amazing, because they're not really they're really sedentary. It's just their steering wheel, their foot and so forth. I'm sure they're sitting, sleeping, sleeping. They probably don't have much of an opportunity to do 1,000 steps in a day or 500 steps in a day as well.
They actually do, and that gets me back to that second point. You're like, do you start with movement? Do you start with mind? Right. Or so what I think that when it comes to movement, I think where coaches fail a lot is they give people, the standard, like, you got to work out 30 minutes or an hour a day, and you got to hit 6,000 or 10,000 steps, where I know biochemistry of the brain starts in 2 minutes, but it's really good after 4 minutes. So if I can get somebody to move for 4 minutes at a time, they're going to notice a difference.
Okay.
So what I would tell drivers is, I go, I need you 4 minutes, 3 times a day. And I would give them a bunch of little videos of 4 minutes of movement. When you first wake up in the morning, before you drive that truck, you got to do this, review of your truck. You got to walk on the truck and check all these different things. It's a big thing. I go, so while you're doing that, I want you to either fit in some push-ups, some squats, some stretching, whatever it is, or just walk consistently for 4 minutes at a little bit of a brisk pace, and then get in your truck and see what you notice. And they noticed they didn't need that energy drink, or they only needed 1 cup of coffee instead of 5 cups of coffee. And then when you're fueling your truck, or you got to go to the bathroom and you stop your truck, it takes a little bit of time to fuel that truck up. You have 4 minutes to move again. And then the third thing is, I go, anytime you're done eating your last meal of the day, do not go to sleep after that. You got to move for at least 4 minutes.
Okay.
So can you find 3 times a day to move for 4 minutes? And then movement and exercise becomes a gift, not a chore. Because when it's a chore, we'll do it for a few weeks, a few months, maybe we're motivated that long, but how many people do you know have started exercising and quit? So if you could start wiring the brain to say, when I do it for 4 minutes, it's not a burden on my schedule, and I feel better. This is a gift I'm giving myself. And that's the key, I think, too, especially for people who are so inconsistent. Now, people who've worked out regularly but aren't getting the results, then we can tweak their workouts, but and look at their nutrition. But for most people who are just super inconsistent with exercise, or haven't exercised for a while, or 4 minutes 3 times a day, and I guarantee you it'll change your life.
That's so amazing. It's like so little, but on the back end, it's going to pay off, obviously.
Yeah, because Chris, I don't have time. There's no way I can work 14 hours a day. I drive a truck. You got to do this, got to do that. Like, okay, just find 4 minutes. And they find the 4 minutes, and guess what happens? That 4 minutes becomes 8 or 10 minutes half the time, because they actually do have more time.
Exactly.
They got to do their laundry. Well, it takes 20 minutes to dry. Yeah, you got to do a couple of things. You got to pee. You got to do this, you got to do that. But you got 8 minutes to move there, right? And they end up, the 4 minutes becomes 8, 12, 15, even 30 minutes sometimes on their own, without being told by a coach. They got to self-discover it. When you self-discover it, it sticks.
And like you said too, they're going to feel better afterwards.
Yeah.
Motion is emotion, and so forth. So they're going to feel better. They're going to notice, like, oh, cool. Like you mentioned too, we don't need the caffeine or whatever they're initially going for as well. So they can utilize that energy that was created from the motion there, which is really amazing. I think it's really cool that you can start up at 12 minutes a day. Just like that's really very promising. It's not overwhelming to people in a sense either.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing, right? I think we get overwhelmed. How many people have you coached that played sports in high school and maybe even college, or were in the military, and now they're in their 40s and their body's not great and their body aches, and they keep quitting exercise because their whole definition of exercise was when they were 19 to 22 years old.
Right, exactly.
You can't. They're not the same thing. You don't need the same thing right now. You're not saving our country in the military. You're not doing this. So what can we do to transform their paradigm shift, right? That paradigm shift, the mindset to like, oh, I just got to move more. I mean, we're seeing so many new studies on low intensity exercise. I just had a conversation with a client this morning, how it's come full circle. And I never, ever, ever stopped doing long-term, low intensity exercise. It's just good for my mind. It's a meditation for me. And how many trainers said when HIIT started becoming such a popular thing, don't waste your time doing low intensity cardio. But now zone 2 cardio is being talked about by everybody about its longevity benefits, its stress management, its parasympathetic nervous response, it's oxygenation of your system. It's a healing type of movement and exercise. So go take a long brisk walk. Don't think of it exercise. Go check out new things in nature. Go check out your city, whatever it is. Go take a nice brisk walk for 30 or 40 minutes, a couple times a week.
Just the basics can pay you off so much. It's really what it comes down to. You're not asking for 50 push-ups in 30 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes. You're just asking for the basics, and the basics are going to pay dividends essentially.
Exactly. And you build up to that, right? I mean, there's some people who are driven and motivated and want to. I've coached Rick Bayless, the chef in Chicago, who's pretty well renowned.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite clients I've ever coached in my life because he knew how to progress gradually, but he's the most consistent person I've ever met. Like no matter what I gave him and designed for him, he would do it. He'd go to Mexico and film his show, 13 hours a day filming, and he'd still find 20 or 30 minutes to do the routines in the morning and in the evening and stuff. So you'll build up to whatever you want to do. I mean, you can push as hard as you want, get as strong as you want, but you got to do it gradually, and you got to meet yourself where you're at. You can't judge yourself on what you did 25 years ago.
I heard the term, I've been emphasizing this when we're working with clients, meet yourself where you're at. Don't expect to go couch to 5K or to a half marathon or a marathon in a month or so.
Right.
You don't want to do that too much. So it seems like movement is a very important aspect of these 6 essential steps to mastering insulin. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, it's one of the 6.
Awesome.
Because movement increases your insulin sensitivity. Right. And our cells, when they can't master or when they start losing and becoming desensitized from so much insulin being pumped in the blood, that's what really gets us into trouble. And hyperinsulinemia is the issue. It's not high blood glucose. It's hyperinsulinemia. It's that constant insulin going into the bloodstream, and the body keeps pumping more because the cells aren't connecting to it. Right.
So when you do workouts, I mean, we can kind of dabble in some different areas. Is it cardio-based, a little bit of resistance-based to make sure the muscles are there to help to support that blood glucose as well? Kind of all the above in a sense?
Oh, 100%. So I think, first and foremost, movement is movement. And when you look at studies on longevity, the people who have the most communities, that people that most over 90s and over 100s, they did consistent light, low intensity movement on a regular basis, mostly throughout the day, right? So that's the most important thing, I think. But we also need to build strength and have bone density and lean muscle mass. So lifting heavy things on occasion. And when you look at some of these populations, they would carry heavy stuff for 10 minutes, several times a day. It was just part of their living in their community and contributing. But so, yeah, I'm a big proponent of lifting heavy.
Awesome.
But just once every 2 to 3 weeks, if that's at the minimum, right? And I don't think you need to go. Yeah. But I'm also a proponent of functional type movement more than the isolated, traditional bodybuilding workout.
Curls or something.
Yeah, curls are great, but the curls on average should be most of the time. And again, it has to be 100% this way, but mine is the 80-20 rule. 80% of it needs to be very functional. So if 80% of my curls, I'm going from like either a deadlift to a curl, or a slide lunge to a curl, or a squat to a curl, because when the bicep is turned on in function, in reality, It's as a reaction to what our body's lifting from the ground up. Right. So that's what a bicep never turns on like this in real life, unless you're posing in a mirror. But it's a chain reaction from the foot to the butt, to your core, to your shoulder, to your bicep. And all these pathways from proprioceptors are turned on to turn the bicep on as a reaction. The more holistic and integrated we can keep our body, the better off. Think about a bodybuilder that does all isolated, and again, some of it's multi-joint movements, but a chest press, a pec fly, a row, they're isolating this muscle or muscle group, but look at their movement. Their mobility is horrible. So when you can't move that well, you got to think about not only the inflammation they have, but the elasticity in the tissue and the myofascial stuff. So I think and there's actually a lot of research on it, that they're actually shortening their life versus elongating their life. And to me, I'm about, I want to live to 130 years old. My goal is to live in 3 different centuries. And that's where I'm going, brother.
That's awesome. And from a functional perspective, it's about living. When I go to the airport, I gotta I bring my luggage. I gotta pick it up. When I get my groceries, I gotta pick up a bag, put it in the cupboards and so forth, pick the milk up and so forth. So when you're 80, 90, you want to be able to pick the milk up. Yeah. It's not about the freaking muscle, but it's just living your life in a sense. That's my perspective, at least. Would that be correct?
100%. Yeah. I don't know if you follow Dr. Peter Attia. He's one of my heroes.
Definitely. Absolutely.
His TED Talk, when he openly admitted and apologized with tears in his eyes, how he judged diabetics. And it was the whole medical field. They looked at it completely wrong and dealt with it in the wrong way by pumping more insulin into them, which is making everything worse. But he has a whole methodology of the centurion type training. If you're going to live to 100, because more people are going to live to 100 with modern medicine and information and knowledge that's going on, and people caring about their health. So what do you need to be able to do when you're 100? And he talks about being able to put your luggage in the overhead compartment.
Exactly.
So he talks about what are specific exercises going to help you do that. What's going to help you pick up your great grandkids? So and he's got this series of 8 exercises or 10 exercises that are just fantastic to think about. What do I got to make sure I'm still doing at any age and every age? So
it's not the sexy pecs, that's cool, or the abs, that's cool too. But it's about living your grandkids, everything else, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's really important. What other aspects of the 6 steps to master insulin and energy can we talk about and cover and so forth?
Well, so the first thing that I teach, my first step is mindful eating.
Okay,
I think that what's more important than what you eat is first how you eat, because that builds the relationship to food. And mindful eating has 3 phases. The pre-phase or the initial phase is being mindful of the triggers, right? We can get a trigger thinking we're hungry because we're stressed, because we're bored, because we had a smell. I remember going to school as a kid, walking past this bakery. So when I smell a good bakery, that trigger comes on, and all of a sudden I could have just had a nice steak dinner 2 hours ago, and I'm hungry again because I smelled that bakery, right? So it's asking that question. If you're thirsty, you get a very similar signal. So you think you're hungry. So what I recommend to people is taking 5 deep breaths, having a glass of water or a tea, and waiting about 10 minutes. Then ask yourself in 10 minutes, am I really hungry? And if you are, you're hungry, you're hungry. At that point, part 2 of it is, okay, if I'm hungry, what does my body really want? Not what am I craving and unconsciously reacting to? Fats, sugars, and salts, which are the most addicting foods, right? So that pizza that you see at the truck stop, or, you smell that pizza you've been craving. And I love pizza. I'm a pizza-aholic. I like steak, pizza, whiskey, wine, and chocolate, and no one's taking them from me. So I'm about consistently good. So 90% of 90% of my meals are really good. And 10 to 15%, I'm wherever I want to be with them. And it served me. And I think it serves a long perspective of it, right? So being mindful of what is that trigger, and then what is it that I really, really want to eat. And again, if your body says, you know what, today I'm just really craving a cheeseburger and fries from this restaurant, I'm going to do it, go for it. But when you do it now, part 2 is during the meal. So you have pre-meal, during meal mindfulness means I'm going to take 5 or 10 more deep breaths. I'm going to say grace. I'm going to just be thankful for the food. If it's an animal protein, I'm going to be grateful for the life that was sacrificed. I'm going to be grateful for whoever had to process this food, grow anything, pull anything, farmers, whatever it is. I find full gratitude in my food, and then I eat slowly and mindfully. So especially in the beginning, I try to practice, and I teach people to practice that first 90 seconds, eat in silence. Those first 2 bites, don't even talk. Just be there and notice the taste, the textures, the smells, right? Everything, what the sensations are when you go in your body. Because if you're having a cheeseburger and fries, those first few bites feel great because we all need salt, sugar, fat, and calories. But after 3 bites, you've had enough salt, sugar, fat, and calories that the rest of the meal starts to take away from your positivity and your energy and your health because you're committing slow suicide. And since our mammalian brain, our brain is hardwired for survival and thriving, now it becomes a conflict. Oof, I'm not enjoying this as much anymore. And I would have truck drivers say, Sergio, when I started doing this, I still got my cheeseburger and fries. I couldn't stop, but I only ate 4 fries, threw them out, and I only ate half my burger and wrapped it up for later. Boom. And then the next time I wanted to try those hard-boiled eggs and a Greek yogurt. Okay. And that's mindful eating, right? And then the third part is the post-meal. How do you feel after your meal for the next 2 to 3 hours? Do you feel more energy or less energy? Do you feel more mentally clear or more mentally fogginess? Do you feel bloating or do you feel normal? And then do you feel cravings within 60, 90 minutes or 2 hours? Because if you have any of those, most likely you spiked insulin. And I can't tell you, I mean, there's low glycemic load foods and all that great stuff, but there's 10 to 15% of the population that could eat white rice and their blood glucose stays the same and doesn't spike insulin. There are some foods that blood glucose stays the same, but you still spike insulin. Think about diet beverages, right?
Right, of course.
Yeah, so that does that. And when you do that, you spike insulin, your blood glucose is going to drop even lower. So then you have more and more cravings, which that's why I say people who drink Diet Pepsi or Diet Soda eat on average 20% more calories because they have deeper and stronger cravings. So that's mindful eating. To me, that's why I start people, because then all of a sudden you change your relationship to food, because food's designed to nourish you. So we're hardwired for survival, we're not going to slowly kill ourselves. If we're in such a dark depression, I don't want to go there, but
of course,
people try to do it a fast way. They're not going to sit there. I know this is killing me and causing cancer and causing this, and I'm going to eat it really slow and keep doing it. So it's just easier to not binge on those foods. And it's okay to have, I love a good cheeseburger. I don't get it from fast food restaurants. I get them from really good restaurants, but I love a good cheeseburger. I just don't do it, but once every 2 or 3 months. You know what I mean?
I think that's amazing because you're versed, so much experience. You're so well versed when it comes to nutrition and lifestyle and mental health and everything else. You don't let it get to you. You don't freak out when you see that burger. You don't see that as an inflammation overload. You see that as pleasure. You can enjoy it. You can enjoy it while you have it. So there can be a balance of, and I grew up in New Jersey most of my life. I miss Jersey Shore pizza. I miss the greasiness. I miss the thin crust. I've been gluten-free for almost 15 years. There's a part of me that wants it. And I'm like, how bad would I feel afterwards? Can I mind over matter this in a sense of doing this? But I honestly respect that you're able to kind of balance out what you know and just enjoy yourself. You're going to enjoy your evening. You're going to have your whiskey. You're going to have your steak. You're just going to enjoy it. So I really respect that.
And again, I'm really, I believe energetically that, there was a study shown that type A CEO personalities that were such perfectionists about their diet, when they ate their salads and stuff like that in a, this high intensity state of being stressed or thinking about their work, and they're just, I can't have any of the wrong fats. It's got to be a perfect diet. And they have really good body fat percentage, are malnutrition because they don't absorb the nutrients, have tons of gut health issues because of their stress response to the food, versus somebody who's having a chocolate croissant and a coffee with cream and sugar, but enjoying it out on a patio with a dear friend and having a wonderful conversation. They're able to get rid of that waste and metabolize it and absorb some of the nutrients a lot better if they're doing it in the right state. It's that unconscious, I'm addicted. I just get my muffin and my coffee and I walk to work every day and I drink it and I eat, and I drink and I eat, and I'm thinking about work and I'm thinking about this. You're doomed,
Of course. It's like driving with one foot on the gas while they're putting on brakes. You're not going to get anywhere. You're only going to go so far from a transportation perspective as well. So I really respect that out of you, able to really be conscious about everything. That's amazing. Have you always been in that state, or did it take you learning and healing to get there in a sense?
Oh, like I said, if you read my book in the beginning, when I talk about mindful eating, when the Bulls were winning all the championships in the 90s with Michael Jordan, I was blessed to have some clients with season tickets and I'd get to go to those games. But a few of my friends and I, we would smoke pot and order a big, thick Chicago pizza, and I'd eat 4 slices without even paying attention to it. I'm like, man, and drink beer. So no, I was definitely not always like this. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
gotcha. Yeah.
When I did become a trainer, nutritionist, I did really, I've always had this mindset of I want it to be holistic and I want it to be, spiritual in some way, shape, or form. Regardless of people's faith, I want to connect them to whatever is a
Of
higher
course.
source for them, because I think that's we need that. And so I spent a lot of my mid to late 20s and even early 30s doing a ton of meditation, going to India several times, and going to different monasteries, and even in the United States. At Fordham University, I went out to Mount Shasta Abbey and Pine Mountain in California. So that really helped me to just be connected to deeper truths and to slow down and saying, okay, what makes me feel better and what doesn't? You know what I mean? It's like, why do something that doesn't make you feel better? And,
Of
then if I can
course.
teach that to people and just to slow down, pause, be aware and be mindful, which is my company's called Alive One Coaching and Alive Consulting. And it's because I want people to feel more alive, more aware, more alert, and to really experience life versus just going through the motions.
That's so important. And balance is key from all perspectives. We
Yeah,
can know
absolutely.
so much about foods and nutrition and glycemic index, load and everything, but being a person too,
Yeah.
enjoying yourself, which is, I really respect that out of you.
But
It's
also, I think
amazing.
I think the what I like to make sure that people don't get the wrong message is that,
Right.
super healthy food is super delicious.
Of
I mean,
course.
my wife is like, holy camoli, she makes healthy food so amazing. She used to have, when I was working the truck drivers, I would do for all the new drivers that were hired every Wednesday, I had a 3.5 hour wellness workshop with them. It included lunch. And my wife was the chef. She'd make them a plant-based, super healthy meal, super delicious. They're all like, where's the meat? Where's the meat? I'm like, you guys get plenty of meat, Trust me, I just want you to have this homemade plant-based meal. And they loved it. I mean, she has such a skill and a gift for making healthy food taste really good. Our problem is our tongue and our brain are so addicted to salt, sugar, and bad fats that initially you think healthy food tastes really bland and boring. But when you start cutting back on that and you really sit and pause and eat mindfully and enjoy the healthy foods, man, have you ever had a
It's
black
amazing.
bean sweet potato taco with this fresh basil homemade dressing on top of it? And it's to die for.
I'm not a boring person. I don't like to think I'm a boring person. I went to the Whole Foods hot bar, salad bar. Their broccoli with garlic, steamed garlic, and a couple of olive oil and so forth. It was so freaking good.
Yeah,
Never more of this. It's broccoli and garlic, but it was so freaking good. And that
absolutely.
satisfied my taste buds. And I'll have some chicken, some other stuff too for protein. So, like you said, it can taste really good once you get your
Yeah,
taste buds used to it.
100%.
That's awesome. So, what kind of things do you have going on as far as clients you work with? Is this weight loss, your main clientele, and so forth?
It's focusing. I mean, I have a functional nutrition training as well.
Right.
So I work with certain clients that are really looking to optimize their health and longevity. I do work with some people who are dealing with gut health issues, and then weight issues. Those are probably my two top issues that I work with. And I work with people who have issues with their body pain and body aches, teaching corrective exercise and functional movement to have a 40, 50, 60-year-old feel like they're 30 again and be pain-free. So those are my two main specialties in that area, on one-on-one coaching. Outside of that, I'm doing a lot of corporate wellness, right? So
Awesome.
my passion and purpose right now is to help people in the workspace achieve more, a culture of well-being versus such stress and burnout, which since the pandemic, it's through the roof. So I partner with a company called Nuvita. We help other trainers build their corporate wellness business as well. Other health coaches build their corporate wellness business. But then I take also, and I have several clients around the country companies that I'm working with it. And within there, I do very mind body type stuff. I do stress management, resilience, leadership. I do conscious leadership, and build a wellness culture within your organization. So it's kind of lead well. How do you lead well? And it starts with wellness, taking care of yourself first.
That's so
And I'm
important.
working on my next book. So those are the things I'm
Cool. That's
really working on the
awesome.
most, right? Coaching
So from a
some
basic
clients.
perspective,
I'm sorry, what's that?
from a basic perspective of wellness, especially in the workplace, is it a matter of making sure someone takes a 5 or 10 minute break every 45 minutes or so. It gets your body moving so that you don't just sit there and kind of waste away in a sense. What are some basic tips throughout the day with this workplace wellness and so forth? I don't mean to be derogatory about wasting away.
Yeah, no. That's definitely one aspect of it is like, how often can you get up and move? Can you have a standing
Right.
desk? Are there any standing desk stations that you can kind of work
Right.
at least 25% of your time standing up? I try to get people to 50% of their time. But I think, one of the interesting things that I found in corporate wellness is that I was helping companies get their employees super healthy, but then there was quite a few that would fall back.
Okay.
And I remember finding this out about 8-9 years ago. And what I found out was that the stress in the work environment was sabotaging everything else. And they were having the stress response of binge eating or whatever it was, right? And so I started bringing that up to some of the bosses, whether it's HR director or owners of the companies. And at that point, I was just getting my certification in emotional intelligence. So I started teaching emotional intelligence so there could be more empathy in the organization and better communication. And then I did John Maxwell's leadership, and I've done John Gordon's leadership. So I teach leadership to change the culture of the organization. So wellness is part of it. So I think in an organization, you have to find out what's going on there. Every organization is different, but absolutely having snacks with you that are healthy. So when you see that person at their desk has a big bowl of candy, your trigger is like, oh, that reminds me, I'm going to have a handful of, whatever, almonds or walnuts and things like that, or an apple, to get companies to buy in, to say, look, it's okay if people have soda at their desk, but don't have the vending machines with it. Don't be the person supporting it. It's okay that people want, fast food. Don't supply it for a business meeting. You know what I'm saying? So it's having those kind of things. So if you're in wellness or you're trying to build wellness in your organization, even if you're not in a position to, I recommend going to HR, trying to set up a wellness committee and saying, look, this is what we want to help the culture of organization. It's just so obvious now. I mean, Harvard's done 2 long research studies that when employees take care of their wellness and participate in wellness in an organization, they have 14 to 19% less sick days. There's less turnover. They have 72% higher percentage of job satisfaction. There's more, like 37% on average, more productivity. I mean, what else do you need?
It's a basic.
The last research study showed it's a baseline of a 6-to-1 ROI for employees who are participating in wellness activities at work.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, 6-to-1 is the low end.
Right. And it's the basics. You have your mid-morning crash after your carbohydrate-rich breakfast, and people are not going to be productive. Productivity doesn't come after that.
One of the 6 steps is fasting, and I really try to help people, especially over the age of 25, to start practicing fasting. And it's a miracle worker. It's a phenomenal practice to build up your insulin sensitivity. To also get rid of some of the cravings, because the blood sugars regulate, normalize, your gut microbiome can reset. Such a great thing to start practicing as well.
Autophagy and everything else, obviously.
Yeah, that's a longer fast, and I have people do that as well, but I build them up to that.
That's awesome. It's like I said, I really appreciate your holistic approach to what you help and support people, not just the food approach, the mindset, the activity, and everything else. We see a lot of people that want to get started. They're like, put their toes in. They're not sure how they can stay on track and so forth. They're like, this is cool for a week, but then life happens. As John Lennon says, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. Life happens in a sense. And so it's doing the simple things, like you mentioned, to stay on track. That'll really just, as you mentioned, help balance out the blood sugar, the insulin levels, and everything else. And it's going to affect, I'm sure you know this too, preaching to the choir, but your mental health, your energy, your focus, your well-being, in addition to your weight, which is going to impact everything else, obviously.
Yeah, so to me, the 2 things, and the other one I talk about in the book is sleep and sleep, right. A specific type of sleep hygiene, but sleep affects insulin, insulin affects sleep. But those 2 right there affect everything else in your body, period, and every disease. I mean, they're connected to cancer, diabetes, heart disease, dementia, obesity. So poor sleep and or poor insulin response is just so detrimental. And, and that's why we see people that, I'm 52 years old and I see people my age and it breaks my heart. And I don't hold any judgment at all. I think that life is challenging and people weren't taught the right things at the right, and whatever hardships people go through, whatever self-deprecating belief systems that they have. But people are aging way too fast and just not doing the right things. And I hope that, you don't have to hire somebody, an expensive coach. You can just buy my book. I'm just kidding. But no, you could just follow some basic, simple principles and really impact your health. But it's got to start with that self-love, which I said from the beginning. And that's part of the foundation of my next book. It's these micro habits for longevity and fulfillment. And self-love is one of them. So
that's step one. If we don't have step one, self-love, we're going to sit in bed all day. We're not going to want to get off the couch. We're not going to want to do the simple things like take a walk outside or take a walk after eating and so forth. So it's simple, basic things. From our perspective, sort of you may pay multiple dividends now into the future, next down and so forth. So where can people reach you? I'm going to put some links to your profiles and everything in the comments. What do you have going on?
Again, so my whole work right now is I'm consulting for Nuvita.
Okay.
So I have my own corporate wellness. I use their technology and their whole platform to go to companies. So I have half a dozen companies I consult for right now. And then I help other trainers or health professionals build their corporate wellness model through it. And then I coach a few clients. So, that's pretty much it. I'm here on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn is Vitality by Sergio is my LinkedIn. My website is aliveconsulting.net. And that's it. Just reach out, say hello, ask a question, whatever you need. And my book's on Amazon. It's Say Goodbye to Belly Fat, 6 Steps to Mastering Your Insulin and Losing Weight for Good. But I would be beyond grateful for anybody who gets the book and gives a review. It means a lot. And if you guys want to pick 2 winners, I definitely will sign a couple books and send it out to 2 winners. So I don't know what kind of method you guys have to kind of spin the wheel to figure that out. What I would ask is if that person, if you pick somebody, if they can just, connect with me on LinkedIn and
Definitely
follow me on Facebook and then they can qualify for the 2 books. So I'll definitely look to send out 2 books to people. Just let me know who and how.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to connect with them. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your experience and your humbleness. Like, so you don't like to talk about yourself, but you got a pretty cool background with everything you've done and your holistic approach, spirituality, mental, emotional, and overall well-being, obviously.
Thank you, brother. Beyond grateful for you, man. It's really nice to connect on this platform and
absolutely.
Grateful for everybody who joined and just watched, and hopefully they gained some value from it. Many blessings to you.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
You got it.